Now at 10:30, a Hollywood producer was sentenced to 146 years behind bars for drugging and preying on multiple women for over a decade. David Pierce will spend his life behind bars for the overdose deaths of an aspiring model and her architect friend.
He was also convicted of raping 7 women. Some of his victims confronted him in court today. Sandra Mitchell live from Hollywood with more on the emotional sentencing. Sandra.
It was gripping and it was grueling. Almost 2 hours of testimony from these sex assault victims and their family members.
He let Christy actually die and kept her for a very, very long time.
The mother of murdered model Christy Giles.
Before he took her to a hospital.
Calling her daughter's killer a monster at his sentencing today.
She wasn't a junkie, some type of plaything for you to take home and shove all the drugs in her that you could, and then leave her and let her die, and then basically throw her out like garbage.
43-year-old David Pierce sentenced to 146 years to life for the 2021 drug overdose deaths of the 24-year-old Giles and her 26-year-old architect friend Hilda Corrales Arzola. Pierce was convicted of drugging, sexually assaulting, and then abandoning the women outside LA hospitals.
Knowing that 2 women did not survive what I did is a weight I carry every day.
It made me sick. It made me mad. And it made me very disappointed in myself for not reporting my experience sooner.
Pierce, stoic in court, forced to listen to 2 hours of victim and witness testimony.
It's not shocking. Anybody that knew him was like, yep, it's long overdue.
Including from his former roommate.
It was a never-ending cycle of parties and him bringing home inebriated girls and raping them.
Tonight, Pierce begins his 146-year sentence with a parting message from his victim's mother.
You enjoy every single day in prison that you have, my sir.
And one more sad and almost unbelievable note to this story. A 25-year-old police officer who also was raped by Pierce and was set to testify today in court at his sentencing was killed last week in an accident while on duty. We are live tonight in Hollywood. I'm Sandra Mitchell, KTLA 5 News. Sharon Micah, back to you.
Here's a story straight out of L.A. Everybody is worried about Floyd Wallace Jr., and everybody is worried about how does that impact them, and how to put it in the youngster language, how does it impact them? How does it impact how I move? Okay, here are the facts. When you look at this particular case, you're going to see that this gentleman is he received 147 years. But among the charges, there was no charge of kidnapping. So what that means is that the women who lost their lives, they voluntarily went to the gentleman's apartment. What that also means is they voluntarily took the intoxicants. Okay, so that seems like a clear case of that they consented to come to his place. They consented to take the drugs. They died as a result of their choices. And so how does he get 147 years? And can he be considered a monster? That's basically his defense attorney's argument. And that's the argument that he made. That's the argument that his co-defendants made. But that's not the resolution that the jury came to. So here's the problem. The most difficult thing to prove is consent. And the very reason for the law in every single case is consent. I walk into the bank. I leave the bank with a bag of money. The police come around the corner. Now the question that they're going to ask is the bag of money a loan, or is the bag of money a robbery? And each and every time they're going to ask that question. Even if I'm running out of the bank, guns blazing, with a bag of money like Bonnie and Clyde, they still are going to do due diligence and ask the banker, is that a loan? And it very well could be, because I could have went into the bank, grabbed a bag of money out of my safe deposit box. There was a person who was in the bank that was in the bank in the commission of robbing the bank, and he was accosting the customers and also asking the customers for money. I ran out of the door with my bag of money. I was shooting back into the bank because the bank robber was shooting at me. See? That's why consent is the most difficult thing to prove and is at issue in every single human interaction. All of them. Even if you're alone, even if I'm alone, consent is going to be an issue. Because let's say that I'm standing on top of a bridge. I'm standing up on top of a bridge all by myself. No one's around. And the bridge is someplace in Moab, Utah. And the question is that when I'm on the bridge, they find me off of the bridge, fallen and dead. So the question is how did I get down there? Did I self-consent and jump? Did the wind push me down there? Did maybe an animal was chasing me and I ran to the highest possible point to evade the predator and slipped and fell? Was there a human being who pushed me off the precipice? Consent is always the element of the law, and you cannot assume consent. And that's what is at the absolute issue of this case here. Is that this guy, he invited two women back to his apartment. He said that he was a Hollywood producer or party producer. I don't know exactly what, but you know, he was somehow connected with, you know, and they were aspiring models. He was somehow connected with, you know, the fame industry, and he was going to make them famous. You know, just like Passport Bros. They say, hey, we're going to put you in our videos. We're going to make you famous. It's going to be clicks and views. Maybe we will compensate you. Maybe we won't compensate you. You know, in the case of like Don Banks, we're going to have all of the food and drinks that you want. Okay. In the case of Floyd Wallace Jr., certainly he supplied food, drinks, teddy bears, whatever. I mean, you know, certainly P. Diddy, you know, supplied food, drinks, drugs, baby lotion. Okay. And certainly. So that's the issue. And this guy has 147 years. And he might be completely right. But he has a problem. There were 3 gentlemen there and there were 2 women. One of the gentlemen turned state on him. The other gentleman got a mistrial. He got 147 years. the gentleman with the mistrial and the guy that turned state, do you really think that they're really, in case of appeal, that they're going to jeopardize their freedom and try and get this guy a sentence reduction or a non-guilty plea or subject themselves to perjury? Because they said one thing in the first case, and now if they recuse themselves, which is fine, if it is an actual recusal and it's actually new information, that's fine. That's lawful. That's legal. But if it's falsified, oh man, this is my buddy. I did him wrong. I was snitching. It's okay if he self snitches, but I was snitching. I got to help him out. I got to help him out. I mean, they can't convict me really, and I turned state, so they can't get me. So I'm gonna help him out. Okay, you see the whole problem. You see the whole problem. He may be right, but a jury of his peers gave him 147 years, which means he has about 147 years to think about it. Now, he's a duly convicted felon who is duly convicted of murder. Floyd, so far, is merely accused. There hasn't even been a charging statement. So when we decide that we're going to say, hey, does Floyd Wallace Jr., does he apply to me? Is everyone looking at me as if I'm Floyd Wallace Jr.? Well, pass me the basin. Go ahead on and pass me the basin so that I can wash my hands. I can wash my hands of Floyd Wallace Jr. I can completely, absolutely wash my hands. And again, I agree that we look alike. I agree that we sound alike. I agree that we are equally as silly. I'm not going to call the man any names. I'm just going to say that I was in Mexico, he was in Brazil. I never sent him any money. I have never met the man. I've never associated with him. And the only time I ever watched anything that he produced was after his conviction. I didn't even see him appear on an Austin Hollerman video. I'm totally unaware of the guy. That doesn't mean that my defense, as I have stated it, is true, because it's unattested. No one has proven what I just said to be facts. And just because I say it doesn't mean it's fact. It has to be proven. It has to be adjudicated. And that's the danger when you're Austin Hollerman, when you jump on the internet and you start making statements and you think that these statements are going to exonerate you or going to clean up the trail to you, clean up the digital trail to you. But what you don't understand is, if you're Austin Hollerman is that you don't have to make any additional statements other than what's on the public record. You were hanging out with the guy. You were in a video with the guy. You and the guy had international correspondence. Just leave it at that. Leave it at that. There's nothing more to say, because they're going to analyze all of that. They're going to analyze all of that. And any of us who make any statement on like this case in L.A., you know, because people have to say, well, why are you interested in this guy in L.A.? Were you there with him? Do you know him? What's your interest? Okay, damn good question. I can sit here all day long and say, I don't know the guy. I don't look like the guy. I only saw the news report. I can say that a million times. But if someone wants to come here and say, hey, I want you to prove that there's no connection between you and that guy in L.A. And as a matter of fact, you don't have to prove anything, because what we're going to do is is we're just going to lock you up, and by arraignment, you get 24 hours a week or whatever. By arraignment, we should have enough evidence to decide whether or not there's a connection between you and the guy in L.A. They can do the exact same thing with Floyd Wallace Jr. You made a video. You were talking about Floyd Wallace Jr. We think that there's a connection. You deny it. We don't feel that way. That's totally within the powers of the state, because the burden to arrest is so low. And you hear lawyers say this all the time. The burden for arrest is probable cause. That's it. So Austin Hollerman has given people probable cause to arrest him and link him to Floyd Wallace Jr. That doesn't mean that they will arrest him. That just means that now he's reached someone's probable cause threshold. Now, in the same vein, by making a video on Floyd Wallace Jr. and being so concerned about Floyd Wallace Jr., technically, I have reached the threshold of probable cause. Why am I so interested in the guy? Why is he so important to me? Why would I suggest that we have a GoFundMe for his defense? How do we actually know that I was in Mexico and not in Brazil with him? How do we know any of these things? Because I assert that that's the case? That's why they call it an alibi. It's just an alibi. It's an assertion. That doesn't make it true. It's untested. It's untested. It's unproven. So anything that I say right here in this little short segment, it's untested. It's unproven. So if somebody came up and knocked on the door right now and said, "Hey, do you know Floyd Wallace Jr.?" I could say all I want to. Well, no, I don't know him. I'm just sitting here making a video talking about him. And then they say to me, "Why are you concerned about him? What's he to you? What's the connection between you and Floyd Wallace Jr.?" Okay? See? That's how this thing works. Now, in the United States, it doesn't work that way. Probably in most of Mexico, it doesn't work that way. But in the Philippines, it can work that way, exactly that way. When Spain was under dictatorship, it worked exactly that way. When Brazil was under dictatorship from like 1962 to 1982, it worked exactly that way. Cathares and Borges, who fled Argentina, especially under Perón, it worked exactly that way. In Venezuela right now, it works exactly that way. In China, it works that way. In North Korea, it works that way on steroids. So it all depends on where you're at. And your mere interests, mere statements about somebody that's in the law, that has fallen into trouble with authorities, your mere statements, whether you support the person or you vilify the person, can be used as probable cause. Not in every state, but not in every state today, but in every state at some particular point in time, it has occurred. Salem witch trials, Tituba. Yes, it has occurred. Hexenhammer. Spanish Inquisition. On and on and on and on and on. Now, what legitimizes you is when you're equally concerned about what went on with the 2 deaths in LA with this promoter and with Floyd Wallace Jr. and with the potential harm that somebody like Don Banks can do on his yacht parties. When you're equally concerned about all of these things and not just fixated on one guy, like you're fixated on O.J. Simpson, or you're fixated on, you're fixated on Ted Bundy, you're fixated on the Hillside Strangler. Now this fixation causes investigation. So if you're fixated on Floyd Wallace Jr., fixated on him somehow affecting your life, you're opening yourself up to investigation. Say this again. I may look like him. I may act like him. I may smell like him. I may talk like him. But the stuff that he is accused of doing, and they're mere accusations at this point because he's not been convicted, the stuff that he's accused of doing, I have yet to do in this lifetime. That'll come as a shock to somebody, I'm sure, but I have yet to do those things. And I'm not saying that if you give me an eternity, that that I wouldn't eventually do something like that over the course of eternity. And the gods of Olympus did do things like that over the course of eternity. But if you give me a finite life with consequences, and maybe I only have 5 years left of life, right around there. With about 5 years left of life, I can pretty much say that, or we can close the chapter on my life without me involving myself in similar things to Floyd Wallace Jr. So pass me the basin. I'm going to clean my hands of this thing. And any of you who have any sanity, you can clean your hands also. You don't have to make endless videos talking about, am I going to be connected to Floyd Wallace Jr.? He looked like me. They're out to get us. We're all Floyd Wallace Jr. in their eyes. Number one, I don't know who they are. I don't even know if they have eyes. I don't know who they are. So I'm not going to sit here and talk about they, them, and all of that. I'm not going to vilify women and say, hey, when women see me, they see Floyd Wallace Jr. I don't know that. I'm in Mexico. Nobody's down here talking about Floyd Wallace Jr. They don't even know who he is. It's news that is in Portuguese, and it's news that is in English, and it's not news in Spanish, and nobody in Mexico gives a damn. They got their own Floyd Wallace Jr.'s to deal with. They have their own pedophiles to deal with. They're not worried about a pedophile 8,000 miles away that's never been to Mexico. If it's been proven that he's been to Mexico, they might have some concern. And as a matter of fact, they do have concerns because they're setting up a system to make sure that during the World Cup that they interdict pedophilic behavior. Okay. And so far, I'm in compliance with all of the laws of Mexico, by the way. So, I don't know what to tell you. You want to help Floyd Wallace Jr. and help yourself? Fund his defense fund. Have a GoFundMe to fund his defense fund and make sure that the process goes well. I didn't say make sure that he is not convicted. I don't have that power. I'm just saying make sure that the process goes well. And I'm not saying that you should root for conviction or you should root for non-conviction. I'm just saying that you should make sure that the process goes well. If you are perfectly convinced that somehow you are connected to Floyd Wallace Jr. because you look like him, or because you went online and said some crazy stuff about about American women versus other women in the world, and I won't even repeat the crazy stuff that people say. I will not repeat crazy stuff where you say the women over here are better than the women over there, and the women up there are better than the women down there, and the women down there are better than the women up there. I am not going to make a crazy ass statement like that. Understand, if you do make a crazy ass statement like that, that directly connects you with Floyd Wallace Jr. psychologically. Now they know now they know that you have the same direct tendencies. You have the same direct tendencies. So I wouldn't be running around on the internet making any statements about women over here and women over there and women up there and women down there. And I mean, I would not be that much of a misogynist. I just, I couldn't be that much of a misogynist. And misogynia is a Greek word. And it definitely means the hatred of women. And it doesn't mean a selective hatred, that you can hate women in Rome, but you don't hate women in Babylon. No, a misogynist, he points out it can be one woman, two women, three women, four women, five women, a country of women. It doesn't have to be a world of women, but a misogynist hates women. The number of women that the misogynist hates is not a consideration, especially in the eyes of the law. If the prosecutor determines that you are misogynistic, it can be one woman, or just one, not every one of them, just one. And you can sit in the courtroom and say, well, Your Honor, I love my mother. Still, the prosecutor can label you as a misogynist because you have expressed hatred for one woman. Now, that's the situation that Fred Wallace Jr. is in. He expressed irrational hatred for a class of women, around 156 million of them, whom he did not know. That's irrational. That's crazy. That's stinking thinking.